You should speak your mind. You should say what you have to say, and you should do it honestly, truthfully. Abide by that. There are a lot of times in your life where you will be faced with things in your mind that your conscience will speak to you and say, hey, you should say something about this. And you should speak truthfully. And you should do those things. Bad things happen when you don't. I saw someone earlier this week, and it made me bring up some old thoughts and feelings into my heart and into my mind that I didn't realize were there. And well, I'm just remembering she might see this video, so I should watch my tongue, I guess. I don't want to freak her out. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is that when I was out with this lovely lady, we were talking about some old experiences and times together and things like that. And it made me reflect on times that I should have spoken but didn't. Times where there was something I needed to say and I didn't. Opportunities that I let slip away from me because I didn't speak when I should have. It's been something that I've dealt with for a long time in my life, and I know a lot of people deal with this, where they let go of opportunities out of fear. And we have to be really careful about that, I think, in general. It's important to speak honestly. It's very important to speak honestly. That's something I've really taken to heart in the last few years. I've really tried to be extremely honest with both myself and the people around me. Why? Why is honesty the best policy? Why is that the case? Well, when you choose to speak in a way that's deceitful, in a way that's untrue, you're no longer yourself because you're part lie. That lie is now a part of you. And whatever results from that lie is something that can only happen to you plus the lie. It's no longer just you being involved. It's no longer your adventure. It's no longer your story, your experience. It's the experience of the lie that you told. So if you want to be yourself and you want to have the life that you ought to have and experience the life that you ought to experience, then you have to be honest. You have to be. You have to abide by the truth in your speech and in your actions, because otherwise you will go on an adventure and experience a life that is not yours, but only the life of the lie that you have chosen to tell. And that's a hard policy. It's hard to be truthful all of the time. And of course I fail. Everybody lies. We all fall short of that. But it's necessary to be honest and to chase that as an ideal. And you can't let other people stop you in that pursuit. You know, when we have to, there'll be times where you'll be tempted to lie, to fit in, to do any number of things to get something that you probably shouldn't have, to, you know, any number of reasons. I mean, we can all come up with a million reasons as why to lie. But you can't let other people stop you in your pursuit of the truth. And you can't let people stop you when it comes to speaking your mind. Speaking your mind and truth and honesty they're concepts that are all very closely tied together. Obviously, they're involving truthful and honest speech, so of course they sort of knit together nicely. When it comes to speaking your mind, you can't let other people stop you. You can't let other people get in the way of that. There'll be all sorts of reasons you will be tempted to let people get in the way of that. There's all sorts of social standards. Sometimes there'll be legitimate punishments for speaking your mind. But when your conscience speaks to you and says, hey, you need to speak your mind about this, you need to say something about this, this is wrong, whatever's going on, something's not right, and you could correct it with your speech. You could point it out for everyone else to see, and often other people will see, whatever this wrong thing that is going on as well. You'll just be the one courageous enough to point it out. So don't let those punishments stand in the way, because honesty and truthful speech is the ultimate goal. It should be the ultimate goal anyway. Regardless of the punishments and the things you might deal with for speaking your mind, it's worthwhile, regardless of what it is. Sometimes those punishments are bad. Sometimes it's pointing out something that needs to be pointed out, and you will face like severe punishment, sometimes even by law. Depends on the state of the country or nation or state you're in, obviously. But on a slightly less serious note, this also applies to opportunities. There will be lots of times in your life where you're faced with all sorts of opportunities, whether that's jobs, whether that's friends, whether that's experiences, romance, all sorts of things. You're going to be faced with opportunities, and it's best off if you just say what you have to say and be honest on every level. When you're faced with jobs and you're faced with fear and things like that, it's best to just face it, and face it honestly, because that's how you actually advance. You have to be careful when you're given those kinds of opportunities, on any level, because there's a limited time window for opportunities. So it's important that you speak and act accordingly to that. And you just can't be paralyzed by fear. I think that's the number one thing that stands between people and speaking their mind and being truthful. Because why is that? Why is fear the number one thing that stands between people and the truth and speaking their mind? Well, there's the fear of punishment, certainly, like I brought up before, because sometimes there's real dire consequences for speaking your mind and speaking the truth. But again, if righteousness and truth is the ultimate goal, then that punishment should be irrelevant. That consequence should be irrelevant. So don't let yourself be paralyzed by fear when you have something that you need to say. There's something that needs to be said, and no one's saying it, and you know it. You have to speak it, regardless of the punishment, regardless of the consequences, because it needs to be said. So there's certainly that domain. Why else would you be paralyzed by fear? Well, this is on a more personal level for me. I deal with this a lot because I'm someone who tends to view opportunity as risk and as danger, and not as potential and value, and as an opportunity. I'm so bad at that. I don't know why exactly it is. I think it's just my personality. I think I'm prone to withdraw from people and things, somewhat out of fear, I guess. The fear of failure at times, the fear of missing out sometimes the fear of being included. We have to be better as people when we're looking to advance and grow. We need to be careful with the opportunities that we've been given, because there's only so many opportunities that you'll be given in your life, and you don't know when the next one's going to appear. And that's another thing when it comes to opportunity. Having lots of opportunity, that's what wealth is by definition. Like, you can be a wealthy person and have no money, because wealth is defined by the opportunities that are surrounding you. So if you want to be a wealthy person, you need to cultivate opportunity. To cultivate opportunity, you have to take the opportunity that's already in front of you, because more things will appear in front of you as you take the path that has appeared. The fog sort of clears in front of the road, if that's how you want to think about it. I think that's some good symbolism to remember, that concept. So take the opportunities that are in front of you. Think about them carefully and honestly assess them. or assess them honestly, I suppose. Be the more grammatically correct terminology, I guess. And be wise. Listen to your conscience. Meditate on things. Be willing to speak your mind and take up opportunities and speak honestly, regardless of what you're facing, whether that's fear of consequence, whether that's fear of failure. Do not be paralyzed by fear. Don't be conquered by fear. You're better than that. You can be. This is something I need to work on myself. Like I said, I'm really bad at looking at opportunity as value, but more as risk, and as danger, and as somewhere I don't want to be, because the standards are high, the pressure is high, and there's a high risk of failure. It means that everything you have could be lost in the process. Now, not every opportunity is that dire and that dangerous. Depends very much on the opportunity. But sometimes it means that. Sometimes you will have an opportunity in front of you. Sometimes it's going to be, I don't know, moving across the country for a job offer, and in those moments, you better really think about that carefully and wisely. Because sometimes taking the high road, sometimes taking the correct path means burning your boats. If you want to take the island, sometimes you have to burn your boats. You need to be backed up into a corner and fear failure, because otherwise, if you're if you're trying to climb somewhere and the pit below you is bottomless, well, you'll have a pretty good motivation to get to the top. So sometimes that burning your boats mentality is necessary. Obviously, that's not necessary for every opportunity you'll face, just those big ones that require a lot of commitment. Sometimes you need to choose whether or not you're going to burn your boats or not do it at all, because you just don't have the opportunity to be half in and half out. But again, that's certainly not for everything. Only those big opportunities that you'll be faced with in your life. In the big picture, when we're thinking about speaking your mind and speaking honestly and truthfully, there's this innate, I would say, Christian idea of sort of the logos embedded in the individual, the spirit embedded in the individual, the being made in the image of God. One of the core elements of that is the fact that you have this ability to speak and to set the world right with your thoughts and words and actions. And that's a hard concept to kind of wrap your head around, because it's complex metaphysically and literally, physically. It's hard to know what to make of that, but you have this innate value with your ability to speak and your ability to speak your mind and speak truthfully. You have the option in front of you, if you would aim to do it, to truly set the world right. Like I said, I think that's the right terminology, to set the world right, to make things better for yourself, for your friends, your family, your community, your state, your nation, the world at large. I think you have the ability to do all those things, but it comes at the cost of speaking truthfully and taking the opportunities that are in front of you. That's the path. It's the path. It's the way. And truth and the willingness to speak your mind is the core mover on that path. It's not the central motivation. It's the central tool. It's the number one tool you have to go from point A to point B when it comes to that path, to setting the world straight. What else do I have to say about this, about speaking your mind? When you're speaking your mind, when you're faced with those opportunities and those times where you need to speak your mind, where there's something wrong and you need to set it right, you have to speak confidently but listen humbly. Always take into account the fact that your speech is just your speech. You could be wrong. So listen humbly, listen carefully, take criticism, be willing to debate. If you're going to go against tradition or go against something that you know to be wrong, but it's commonplace, you had better really know that it's wrong. Like, do your research, back your statements up. Um, because how would you say that? The greater the tradition, the greater the force behind whatever you're pointing out, whatever you're saying it's wrong, and I need to verbally correct it by speaking my mind. The greater the force behind that is, the greater the force in yourself is to that needs to. The greater the force within yourself needs to be. I still don't think I said that correctly. How can I articulate myself better there? Okay, let's use an example. Let's say let's go to the Soviet Union, right? Let's say 80s ish. Actually, no. Let's go back further. Let's go back to the beginning, because I think that'll illustrate my point better. Beginning of the Soviet Union, so that'd be what, late 1910s, I think. Someone can fact check me if I'm wrong on my dates there. And you are someone living in Russia, soon to be the Soviet Union, and you know that this communist Marxist philosophy is wrong. There's something in its nature that you know it's wrong. But there's a huge force behind that, and a force enough to turn a nation as massive as Russia, and then soon to be the Soviet Union, communist. I mean, that's a huge force and mass of people and ideas and thoughts behind that. So if you are going to stand up and speak what you believe to be true, what you know to be true, then you had better be certain that it is, because it's likely that hell is going to rain down on you for that. So you had better be backed up on every imaginable level there. And I'm actually glad I brought up the Soviet Union, because I have one more point to get through, which is that, again, on this idea of the value of the individual and their ability to speak and change things, that is the antidote to tyranny and to corruption. Because when you're looking at tyranny, a lot of people think of tyranny as being a top-down, dictator down to the peasants. But actually, it's lies on every level. Everyone at every level is lying in some capacity to uphold tyranny, because it means someone along the line isn't speaking their mind when they know they should. Everyone has their eyes shut to the tyranny and the wrong that is going on, but they won't say anything. They aren't and that's a sin of omission if you are someone observing it and not saying anything, and it's a sin of commission if you are the one perpetrating it, obviously. But everyone's involved, everyone's implicated. There's sort of the Dostoevsky idea, I think, in the Brothers Karamazov of I think I might be wrong, it might not be from that book, but Dostoevsky nonetheless, the idea that every man is not only responsible for everything he does, but for everything everyone else does. And I think that's right, but it's so hard to hold yourself to that standard, because your sins of omission are essentially limitless if that's the case. Every wrong in the world is somewhat perpetrated by you on some level, because you aren't the kind of person that you could be. Because if you were everything you could be, the world would heal, essentially. And man, that's a profound idea, and I am not I haven't thought about it enough to unpack that further. I didn't plan on bringing that up. That just kind of came out. So anyway, what do we do with all this? Let's tie this all together. Speak honestly. Speak truthfully. Abide by the truth. Walk in the truth. Because if you do, it will be your life and your adventure. Everything you do will be yours, fundamentally. Be your experience. You won't have to be someone that isn't you. You should speak your mind, because there's opportunities that are going to come to you, and you have to be quick and be honest and take them up when they're in front of you. I need to work on that myself. And speak your mind when there's wrongdoing happening. Excuse me. Because if you let that wrongdoing happen because you are in yourself afraid to speak speak out about it, then you are implicated as well, because you didn't have the courage to speak, and you could have prevented said wrongdoing. So abide by the truth, speak your mind, be wise, meditate, learn, and I think that's about all I have to say. So I hope you all are blessed. I love you very much. I genuinely pray for all of you who watch these videos. And I hope my words can be helpful to you in some manner. So I think that's it. Bye.